Good day, my fellow Americans and good people of the world. Today, I would like to address you in regards to um, a concept that I like to call that's funny. There is this way that I live my life that is a little bit unconventional from what other people usually experience. I've noticed throughout the years that I kind of live in my own world. I'm not of this world. And it's not because I don't fit in or I don't belong. It's just that I'm moving to the beat of my own drum, essentially. And so I've had a hard time throughout the years coming to terms with the fact that it feels wrong to me to do what society says is right. And when I do what I think is right, society looks at me as if I'm weird. But over the years, I've, found ways to blend in so that not necessarily like masking who I truly am, but blend myself, kind of like distill myself down so I'm not quite as intense as I would be if I was full-fledged myself all the time with people. And I do that not because I want to fit in, but I do that because I want other people to not feel like I'm not including them, or as if they're not, that as if I think myself superior or think them inferior or something like that. It's like, one of my favorite quotes is, dog girl sum up, that she was never on the same page as everybody else. Sometimes she was ahead, sometimes she was behind, sometimes she was in an entirely different book. And this is, I believe the quote's by Brand. It's one of my favorite quotes because I always felt that was kind of like what my life story was. I'm living in a different experience from other people, and it's really hard to find how to get on the same page with individuals. So it's been, a great interest in my life to figure out how to get on the same page with people in such a way that becomes a welcoming for them. And without me having to make them conform for me or for me to conform for them, but just like a mutual respect. And the only way that I found to do that was to play games with people, because games and sports, people tend to, there's still competitiveness to the situation. There's contention and there's this oscillating effect of, the positive and negative polarities, and we challenge one another, and these are aspects of growth. And so it's a big part of the human experience. If you want to grow together with somebody, then you have to get to know somebody on a level of in terms of almost like a test, but not like a test to try to find a gotcha moment, but rather like, can we be in the same experience with one another and not step on each other's toes? Like, can I be in proximal space with you, you in proximal space with me, and then we can just kind of dance together and not become, a burden or a barrier or an anchor in the negative sense of like dragging, behind you or whatever. So, because I'm very much a free spirit and I don't want to hold other people back. But I also know who I am, and I know where I belong is where I feel home and centered within myself. And everything in the universe fully aligns with where I'm at in my life and what I'm experiencing, to the point where like I follow what I call my heart song, which like literally leads me to where I need to be at just the right time, the right moment, to meet the right people for the right reasons. I don't always necessarily know what right stands for in the moment, but I keep my mind open to the possibilities because I know that there is a universal force that's leading me to where I'm meant to be. There's like part of myself that's compelled, and I listen to that heart song and I follow it, and I always find myself where I need to be in perfect timing, to the point where, how do I know when I'm in perfect timing? It's that sense of being in flow. And that flow state, as I've talked about before in some of my other videos, is just kind of like knowing, like, this feels good, this feels right, this is what it's about, you know? And then I start seeing in my world around me, like, even if I'm in the same space that I've been in before, all of a sudden I see something more than what had been, you know, apparent to me before. And that's how I know I'm in the right place, because if what I'm seeing is resonate with me in terms of like, got it, you know, that makes sense. There's not something that's telling me no, where I feel like I have to be ashamed of myself, or something where I feel like no, like this feels like a threatening thing or whatever. It's more like, I know that this is right. And, you know, I become, what's the movie, Yes Man, where Jim Carrey like goes around to say yes to everything. And because he says yes to everything, he starts breaking out of his shell and having new experiences. And then he finds himself meeting his destiny on the road of just living as a yes man. And so I kind of, you know, I use that as like a reference for people, because a lot of people have seen that movie and they can be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's like following your heart song. It's doing whatever the universe offers you and embracing it fully and accepting it for what it is, and not try to put your worldly paradigm illusioned, you know, perspective on it, but just like see it for what it really is. And in order to do that, you really have to see and look with intention. And that's how I live my life. It's a constant intentional way of being. And then I'm open to the possibilities, and like things start syncing up for me, and I just live in the best truth I know, and then synchronicities align. And so what I'm trying to get at here, in a sense, is to explain the concept of unity. There is a universal order. I've talked about it before in my videos. It's the concept of prudentia, which is usually accompanied by justia. And it's the just, right, reasonable, fair order of the universe. And when you sync up with that, which is essentially the two governing forces that direct you towards truth, when you live in that and you listen to what's just, fair, reasonable, right, and you're in perfect timing and alignment, then you know you're moving towards your truth. And that's kind of a way that I use to govern what my heart song tells me, because I love everything. I am just fascinated with the world, and I can see beauty everywhere, and I can see potential in everything, and trying to get myself to focus on what truly matters. I had to like distinguish for myself a way to reason with the world and see what the universe is showing me, listen to that in a conscious way. And so I established kind of like what I like to call toys, which is just a way of perspectiving something. Like, to know a thing has a purpose and it fulfills it in an intentional way. And that if you just use it in some formulation, an operation, kind of like a box that takes an input, it does a thing in the middle, and then it gives you a specific output. That's kind of, what I think of when I think of like toys. But so creating these ways of looking at the universe and perspecting it so that I can catch the aha and the epiphany moments, because that helps me to stay alert and conscious and aware of where I am and when I am, thus who I am, so I can continue to follow my heart song most clearly. It's kind of like, happens all the time. I will just be anywhere and like the right person will show up to say the right thing that I needed to hear. Or I will be somewhere and the right song will come on at the right time. Or I'll be driving down the road and the right sign will stand out to me. You know, there's this one sign that I drive by sometimes in this one place that I visit often. And it says, trust the experience. And, you know, even when I'm not conscious and I'm just driving through this town, something about my subconscious always registers and I look over at just the right timing and see that sign. And then it reminds me, oh yeah, that's right. You do just trust the experience. And I've traveled all across the United States. I won't say everywhere in the United States, but all across the United States. I've been many places, and the same thing happens. It doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter if it's a new place or it's somewhere I've been to plenty of times. My following my heart song, it works, you know, just like I have helped myself to like catch those aha and epiphany moments. And so this is talking about the law of unification, which is one of the universal laws. Not to get into the realm of too many people might think it's like, oh, that's woo-woo or whatever, but they really are a governing force in the universe. And if you're intelligent enough to use them in the right ways, like it really does give you, it's like the great alchemists of the past did self-experimentation to discover how these universal laws work, perfect them within themselves, and then realize, yeah, these really actually do work. And it was the discoveries of these early alchemists that help us to formalize the basic body of scientific work that we have today. And if you look at how we conduct science nowadays, it's very much in the realms of what used to be considered the metaphysics. But somewhere along the way, the metaphysics broke away from the standard physics and, you know, the traditional science that we have now, because it's focused so much on the material. And so it kind of lost sight of what is considered the spiritual. And that, needing to pull it all back together, is through my years of my research, because I've been interested in, you know, esoteric things and the metaphysical world and the concept of like religions, and but also understanding the deep, thorough aspects of rigorous, well-defined, well-established, concentrated orders in order to help to reveal basic truths for us that we can then build off of in society, the tangibilities. And so being fascinated with all of these aspects, and then also having a builder's mind, that's of course why I build toys, is because it's a way to unite the metaphysics with the actual physical world and see how they overlap with each other. That gives you a new perspective on looking at things, so that you can understand like a really deeper truth of how to live as a human being in a sensical world, a material world, and be sensical about it and be aware and observant. And I think it's an art that we had a long time ago, you know, before we were inundated with information, knowledge base that we have, you know, imposed upon ourselves so that we can understand the universe in the material sense, which is help us to, you know, innovate and industrialize and build out the amazing civilization that we have. But there's something of the metaphysical side of things that's like an intuitive understanding of the natural order of the universe, which I think like the ancient Egyptians had key insights into, and the ancient Sumerians and the people who founded the origins of mathematics and language and how they applied it to be able to establish civilization to the point where it got to the point where we were able to turn the metaphysical, mythological, interpretation of the universe into another form of tangibilities. Somewhere along the way, there was an interpretive, lossy effect, and you see civilization go from thinking with the heart mind sequence to thinking with the mind, and the heart kind of just got left behind, even though the heart is the resonant part. Like everything in the universe is energy, and what's the one part of our body that makes sure that the energy is flowing? It's our heart. So there is, I believe it's the Heart Institute, does this whole study in a scientific, rigorous way of understanding the kind of like the sphere of which you live in your heart resonance. And when you live out from your heart in a sense of you listen to what it's saying to you, you begin to kind of see a universe in front of you that you can't see otherwise. It's a truth that's fundamental. And it's a way to sense things that are not the, thought thinking sense, but a sense of knowing. It's intuition. It's, gathering an insight from something that's in an abstract way. It's I can't tell you exactly how I know, but I know, sort of thing. So in the realms of, unification of understanding these universal laws and how they work and applying them in your life, and doing so in such a way that kind of has the rigid, structured order of our scientific basis of, the physical world, you begin to see how everything is connected in a really deep and meaningful way. And when you live out that experience in such a way where it's not I'm constantly consciously experimenting and paying attention to it, it's just kind of you live out of it, and then when it becomes in your field of awareness, you're haha, that's funny. And so I have a lot of that's funny moments in my life. And I decided tonight to make this video because of the fact that I've had a lot of that's funny moments today. I made a video last night, and in the process of, living in the aftermath of that choice, my brain was synced up with a different type of experience, and I started seeing the world in a new way. And though I'm in the same environment I was in, things are different. So I'm traveling right now. I travel all the time. And right now I'm visiting my eldest child and their life partner, my son-in-law, and being in their house and their space, really, I feel very safe and very able to be myself in this space. And I think it's because, I've raised my children well. And knowing that we have a really good relationship, and that's taken years of establishing, a deep understanding of each other, to the point where when we come together in the space, we start sharing aha epiphany moments together. And I don't necessarily point it out to them all the time, the things that I see that are familiar and relatable and funny, but sometimes they catch onto it too, and maybe not in a conscious way, because they haven't lived through the type of rigorous experimentation and consideration as I have, but they still see the funny things that happen. And so we laugh about these things together, and we share a lot of joy, and those are really important connections and bonding moments. And so the reason why I'm speaking out and making another video today is because I had one of those special bonding moments with my son-in-law. We were just having this conversation. We were talking about games, and got into a conversation about toys, and we were talking about movies and all these other things. And then just out of nowhere, he brings out this toy, and I mean, my heart just leapt. I was so excited about it. But he saw the reaction that I had to it, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, your child, like, my wife gave this to me, like, isn't this cool? And I was just like, yeah, of course, that's super cool. Like, I love things like that. Like, blows my mind. It's one of my favorite things because it's a puzzle, and I love puzzles. And he saw the reaction that I had, and then he gifted it to me. So he re-gifted it to me. And it was just such a resonant moment for me, especially because right now, the things that I'm working on, I'm building a new toy, and it was just funny that at the point in time where I'm building the next series in this toy, I'm at the point where it's literally how I play, which is what I call 6 degrees of separation. And one of the things that I've made a toy before where I tested out a randomizer, which was like a 5-2 randomizer, and now holding on reserve a 6-1 randomizer. And just kind of like tested out over the years what a 5-2 would look like. And now I'm like, okay, 6-1 can match the 5-2. Again, this is mathematics in my head as the engineer coming out. And now I'm like, okay, I can do the 6-1 will match the 5-2, so it would be easy to make a conversion. And so now I'm building in this 6-1, you know, orientation of the 6 degrees of separation. And my son-in-law gives me this, which I'm going to share because it's super cool. First of all, beautiful box. This is a unboxing video. I've never done those before, so I don't really, excuse me for not being professional about it. The box is just beautiful and incredible. But this is what he gave to me. And I love cryptology. It's because I love numbers, I love figures, I love symbolism, and because those are the things that I like to use when I create toys, because they help me access the physical and the metaphysical at the same time and unite them into one in a way that I can capture the aha epiphany moments. So, you know, if you haven't seen one of these before, they just have the different dials, and when you have it in the just right, perfect alignment, it opens up and it reveals what's inside, which in this case is a very beautiful and lovely heart. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Open up the heart and see that it matters to me." And I think this is just a prime example of what that means for me, is that there is this way that I'm looking at the world, and I'm seeking this certain type of alignment, not because I'm expecting it to be there, but I'm anticipating because I sense it's there. how do you make the, what's the quote? Um, make what can be measured measurable, sort of thing. So that's about alignments for me. And I make my toys to be able to encapsulate and understand those moments of arrival when I've like followed the rhythm of my heart and it's led me where I know I'm supposed to be. Like, this is my place. This is destiny. It's being met here in this moment. And I just enjoy those moments in time. And then I create these toys, in a sense, in order to help to capture it. And sometimes it's like I see along the way how far away I am from that. And when I see that, I will create a toy in the moment to mark a memory and make it whole. And when I do that, it gives me a reference point by which I can travel through time and travel across great distances in space and unify them together, so that it's kind of like reading the notes on, for a score. Every note has its perfect timing and place. And when I create these points, it's like creating a note and then seeing when the next one comes in, and then I just make the notes as I go along, but I'm always like referencing back and like checking my head and my heart alignment. And then I start to hear the music that's playing in that space. It's like, wow, I'm really harmonizing with the universe this way. And when I know I'm in harmony, cool things like this happen to me. And like, I'm making this video is part of marking a memory to make it whole as well, because this is important to me. Because, I mean, it's more than words can describe how special this means to me. Especially because this question that I have in the back of my head, which is helping me to align and attune with my sense of where I need to be as I'm following my heart song. I like check it with my head and my heart. So there's a logic base to it. And then I follow it and I make these toys to mark where I've been. And I start to see, replicas of it in my view around me. And so I can recognize when something's on its way to be arriving as the next chord in the progression, if that makes sense. And so when I do that, it's not necessarily like the thing fits in because I've made a way to capture it, which is a lot what science does in terms of testing. It's like if I establish parameters and things fall into place there and it meets what I expect for it to have, we could probably say that that's, something that's a truth. And if other people can see that as well, and then potentially replicate it, and then yeah, it's, probably an empirical evidentiary proof of what is being tested is, truth and reality, because you can share that truth with other people and they can have a similar experience under different conditions. But what I'm trying to do is a little bit different because it's very personal. Everybody, if they took the time, could probably make these toys and points of reference something that fits in with their sense of the world and their logic base, so that they could reveal these aha and epiphany moments for themselves, or that's funny moments, as I like to call them. But most people don't think about that kind of stuff. They don't have time. They're very distracted with the comings and goings of life. I get that way too, so it's not like I'm in this state all of the time, but I make time to be in this state because it's part of the good work that I do. Because I'm trying to synthesize what I'm consciously aware of and building out for the anticipation of the imminent moment of arrival, and then capturing that in a framing of some sort so that I can share that with other people, because I know that I live in a different world of experience than most others. I kind of feel like, I'm not of this world, but it's not because I don't belong. It's because other people have lost touch with their own heart songs, and so they don't consider it. And then when you start to talk about it, a lot of people are like, well, that sounds like woo-woo, or you're crazy. So I usually don't share that information with people. Me being brave right now to share this, and I'm not even concerned whether people think I'm crazy by sharing it, because it's not a matter of me trying to impress myself upon you. I'm here to leave you in wonder about what I mention. But I wanted to share this because the next step in I love this. Like, I just have to say, this is amazing. I can't wait to put something very, very, very special inside of it. It's like a whole entire chamber compartment. More than likely, I'm going to handwrite a note, scroll, and put it inside. But the reason why I wanted to share it, again, it's funny to me, and gosh, I wish I could just find somebody else that has a similar sense of humor in terms of like, yeah, that really is funny. But the next step in my toy that I've created is talking about unity and, the universal laws of attraction and unification. And so where I'm at, I love how you have to get it in just the right alignment. So perfect. Oh my gosh, I'm in love. Hilarious. Okay, so putting that back in its lovely box. There's my unboxing video. There you go. Now I'm with the in crowd of content creators online or something like that. The last unboxing I did was for my Remarkable, which was really very remarkable. It's one of my favorite technologies. Share it again here in all its glory. I think that if every single student in the United States had one of these, it's a universal basic innovation. We would be able to up-level education so much by having every student have one of these. And if they were given it, from an early age, and then it moved with them throughout schooling, this is the one and only school supply you would ever need. It's incredible. So I got my Remarkable while I was in school. And I just think it's funny that I did an unboxing. And the last time I did one was with this. So I'm going to read. This was part of what my creation of my next step of my toy was going to be, and it's talking about unification. So I'm going to read a couple excerpts from my Remarkable so that I can kind of express what it means to me to have something just fall into place. Also expressing, again, I travel all the time. This is why a lot of my videos are just black screens or gray screens, is because I'm not really in an environment where I can make a videos. A lot of times I'm like in my car traveling somewhere, and it just seems weird to have a video shining on my face in an environment where it's not very well lit and you're not going to really see much anyway. So I just do like gray or black screen a lot of the time. I just happen to be, at my child's house and figured I would just sit in front of their nice little fireplace because it's the one part of the house that's quietest and has the most privacy, and it's separated from the rest of the house and the rest of the rooms, and it's just, a simple little corner to be able to be in. And it's got a nice little tabletop that I can stage my camera on to be able to videotape. So I've been spending a lot of time sitting in front of this fire doing considerations and contemplations while I'm here visiting, in terms of like what I'm working towards in making this toy, because it has very, very specific, proper, intended use. And it's kind of like I was saying, a next stage, game-changing innovation that is a new model based off of some of the inner workings that I learned from prior models that I created. And I'm sharing this because I really hope that there is someone who is paying attention to what I'm saying and it will make sense to them. But with that, the excerpts that I want to read from my Remarkable, again, are talking in a general sense about something very specific. And it's kind of like how I explained my toy. I make these mark a memory, make it whole, in order to catch the aha and epiphany later. That's kind of what this is talking about in a general sense. Those points in time reference are a generalization to help create a framework. And then from within that framework, you can see in a very certain specific way what is being revealed within. It's kind of like looking through a pair of glasses and seeing what's on the other side, that you don't get to see unless you have them on. Kind of like people who are colorblind, there's these brilliant technologies, these glasses that colorblind people can put on and they can actually see color, and it's just revolutionizes their lives. It's amazing. I love human ingenuity, comes up with these ways to improve the human condition and human situation. And that's very much why I like to make these toys, because I'm hoping that in it will help me to be able to make universal basic innovations to improve the lives of humans so that they can be better versions of themselves. Okay, so starting with the concept of communion with life. Communion with life expands us, it connects us, it sweetens us, and it enables us. And when we step beyond our small self and embrace each other as a beloved part of a whole, in some sort of tender concern and care, we take action to make beauty together out of all of those things that that we get back when we give. So the reciprocity that ends up happening when you share something really special and beautiful and sacred and important with another person, you are in a sphere of trust with them. And it's kind of like it doesn't matter what anybody else sees or what they know. It's kind of like we have our own internal joke that only we can get because of the lifetime of experience that we've had together, framed it as such, and that's such a special human connection. It's like one of the most beautiful experiences you can share with another human, and it's a deep longing, I think, in every person to share the word intimacy is often, used without the depth of understanding what that really means, but it's just like sharing those realizations of the law of unification, those ahas and those epiphanies and those funny moments. And the only way you can really do that is if you get on the same page with the person. But how do you do that? And so that is very much the reason, spirit of intent as to why I created my game of conversations, to meet people on a level. It's a level playing field. It's a great equalizer. And to just see no expectations, but just anticipations. You're going to come, you're going to bring your best, you're going to have fun, you're going to enjoy yourself, it's going to be a good time, and you get to engage with another person in a free flow state, and you don't have to worry about, the weirdness, and you can just break past the, odd uncomfortabilities of learning about a person in some sort of awkwardness, and then rather you get to embrace the peculiarities. So this conversation game that I created is deeply embedded with my toys that I have created over time, and there's many of them. And I enjoy very much seeing the alignments, and most of them occur in situations like what happened today with this, I get a cryptology toy that has a 6-point marker at the same exact time, with a heart in the center at the same exact time, where I'm moving into the 6 degrees of separation in establishing my new model. It's just like, it's perfect timing, and those are the things that make me smile. It's seeing your work unfold in front of you in such a way where the universe brings you exactly what your heart says it wants. The heart knows what the heart wants. And when you follow in that sense of like, okay, my heart says here and there and in here and there, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in the right moment, the right time. Had I not gone to tell, my son-in-law, hey, I'm just going to let you know I'm going to go make a video recording, and, hopefully I'm not too loud or whatever, and then just to let him know if he happens to come into that part of the house, which it's not, they're up playing video games right now, but it's like, if you come in or whatever, I'm not going to talk to you because I'm making a video. And because of that, we ended up started having this conversation, just random conversations about all this different stuff, and then came in place with this toy. Was presented, and then he gifted it to me. It was like the universe has brought me exactly what I needed, and just perfect timing, and it's always funny to me when that happens. But anyway, the main reason why it's funny is for the fact that I already knew this is what I was going to talk about in this video, and it just brought me into coherent, resonant frequency, and then I started to see the alignments that were happening, like, yes, this is right. And I felt it in my heart, and my head was saying, yes, this is right. And it's that intuitive notion, and then seeing the moment of arrival sort of thing. And I do this on very small scales, but I also do it in very big scales. And again, going back to the quote, make what can be measured measurable. I like to use time and frequency and form, and time not just in the sense of like a watch or a clock, that's definitely that, but also time like seasons and phases, and different types of calendars and whatnot. Another great reason why I like cryptology and things like that is like the Mayan calendar. Like, it's so brilliant to see how they were able to see so vastly far into the future with precision accuracy just because they understood simple basic truths. It's just like, to me, that's amazing. It's one of the most amazing parts about humanity is seeing simple truths and then extracting from that profoundness. And so having that, that's funny moment with getting that gift, I decided that I want to probably read everything that I wrote in this. I was just gonna like extract here and there and then formalize it with just filler information based off of what I sensed was the right thing to say at the moment. And I will do that, but instead of just parsing the text, I'm just gonna read it raw and rough the way it is. I wrote this quite some time ago. It's kind of part of a point in time reference that I create. It's kind of like creating a library, and this is an individual document inside of it. My belief is that by reading it, having a little bit of a conversation to connect it into the historical context, the situational context, and then the find context in terms of like where I am in my life right now, it's going to give me an insight that I'm going to be able to read out in the universe as I see it and be able to extract some bit of knowledge from it that is going to better inform my understanding. So then when I go out and look at the world in terms of I'm trying to problem solve on this area in particular, now that I have that frame of mind looking out, what am I seeing in the, more than words, context that I'm referencing. So, and I find that when I spend more time being raw, like this was just information that I made reference in a very raw state. So it's not like going to come across as, some kind of a, professional letterhead or something like that you would see in like a blog. Like it's the rough draft version. We'll just put it that way. And then I can extract the information, fill it in with more insight, and then it would be, further polishing the insight. So here's the read from the beginning. Sometimes all it takes for unity is a song we can all sing together. A quote by Nate Hammond, Tara Dark. Unity means we don't just hear music. It seems as if we are part of the music. It builds naturally a togetherness, which as a whole brings forth something extraordinary. The city of cities is a global development secured for a lasting peace. We're building a city by working together. Civilization should be measured by the degree of diversity attained and the degree of unity retained. W.H. Auden. Special democratic spirit likened to what Jefferson described: independence. You can disagree on everything, but still work together on one thing, if that one thing is important enough. Bono, Surrender, 40 Songs, One Story. As long as our ideas are the same, we will never be apart. G.I. The wise see unity in diversity. The ignorant see diversity as division. Walden Wesserman. Let's raise our children together. Let them share the same city. I love that so much. I want eudaimonia to prove even the smallest act of service, the simplest act of kindness is a way to honor American identity and the way of life. In tender concern and caring action, we make beauty out of all that we hold. when we step beyond our small self and embrace each other as a beloved part of a whole. This is communion. Communion with life expands us, connects us, sweetens us, and ennobles us. Attempt to galvanize and energize world-weary people into forms of organization with accountable leadership that promote critical exchange and broad reflection. The interplay of individuality and unity is not one of uniformity and unanimity imposed from above, rather of conflict among diverse groups that together reach a dynamic census subject to questioning and criticism. Individuality and independence is promoted in order to sustain and increase the active tension necessary to yield higher levels of performance to achieve the aim of the collective project. The kind of critical and democratic sensibility flies in the face of any policing of borders and boundaries, which is a doggerel sum up of Cornel West's Race Matters. Unity is a sacred pattern of unbroken unity sewn flawlessly, invisible inside all other images, thoughts, and such. It's one great unity of humankind. To those whose support I have yet to earn, I hear your voices. I need your help. I will be your commander/guide too. The state, the community, the citizen acting together and as individuals can do a number of things better than if they were left to individual action. A doggerel sum up of a quote by President Roosevelt. And in conclusion, the world needs you. Pretty short. But the reason why, again, I share it because in this, law of unification, I have had the great pleasure of having these aha and epiphany moments. And when I recognize other people see it too, and they laugh, whether they're conscious of all of the potential that I see and how it all connects, I doubt that they see in the level I do, because when I see everything as a system and not as if I'm looking at people as things, but everything matters and everything has its proper place and its proper intended use. And when I go into cities, when I travel around, because I travel around for research into cities, how to improve them and make them, these wonderful, beautiful innovations to help to raise up, our life standards and our consciousness at the same time. When I travel into these cities and I learn about the people and the places and what can be discovered there, I still always reference my work. And when I travel and I see different types of people, the diversity that's there, there's still a common through line that can be established. And so over time, over the years, through my research and traveling to these different places and seeing all cities have a pretty much basic standard function, basic standard structure. One of the values you can tell about a community is whatever your tallest building is. That's usually what you value the most, right? In a lot of cases, it's banks, which is sad. But centering things around money is, not conducive to well-being, because it's interesting. You see a lot of the places around those buildings are not necessarily conducive to what is really genuinely value and wealth, holistic value and wealth. But anyway, going to these places and I see these references and I see potential, and I'm walking in the cities and I look at buildings because I love architecture. I love seeing structure and complexity and order, but I see everything as an inefficient system. And I just have this desire to improve upon that system. Not because it's like, be this way because that's the way you should be, but just like, if you just move this here and you did that this way and you put a little distance between this here, you'd have flow. And I know that I have this, natural intuitive sense of order and form and frame and frequency, and a natural affinity for mathematics, which is why Leonardo da Vinci is literally the greatest influencer in my life. And I've researched him over the years, and his mind was just like, if I lived, in his time, or rather he lived in my time, we would be best of friends. I just know it because we think so much alike. We could have accomplished so many things together because our minds would have melded very well together. Because I do the same level of just intense experimentation of things as he did. And I have journals upon journals upon journals. Like, this is the reason why I have a Remarkable, because when I condense down my belongings, very compact. I have very few worldly possessions. But the hardest thing was the fact that I had so many paper journals. And so it's been a lot of work to digitize those journals and then stop using paper and moving strictly to my Remarkable so that I have a means to put more information in a more compact thing. That's what technology is supposed to do, is to help us to do the things that we need to do in order to perfect our person, human experience, but not be burdened down by too much of the material aspects of things. Technology is supposed to be, improving upon. But anyway, so, the connections that I have with Leonardo da Vinci is sweet in terms of like, I've always wanted to meet a mind who was curious like that. And not necessarily saying you have to be an artist and, like paint stuff and mold. And I mean, that's all great and it's wonderful. The things that I liked most about Da Vinci was the engineering and the capacity to see the brilliance in the finest of details. And then to know how to correct for something, like when you're painting something and you make an accidental wrong stroke, you can find a way to blend it in such a way that it corrects itself and turns into a beautiful, abstraction that wasn't going to be there before. And so it's kind of like making, the scar beautiful, sort of thing. And so I'm attracted to people who I sense make logical considerations of the world in such a way where they can see the beauty in everything and they find appreciation in it, and that they have those that's funny moments, or just, what we consider joy. But so my referencing for Leonardo da Vinci is also for the fact that I get this codex today. And it reminds me of, why I like to build and why I like to make these toys, is because of the fact that It's like doing a life's work where my life is a living answer to this constant ultimate question that I'm always asking myself, and listening for the answer and being aware of it when it shows up. And when you see it in a person, that they are the answer to many of the questions that you've asked yourself over the years, it's very hard to contain the excitement because it's like, yes, I equate it to what I would feel and think in the moment of meeting Leonardo da Vinci and being able to meld minds with him. It's like, genius, and not genius like high inflated ego and I'm better than thou art sort of thing that society has somehow contorted that word with some really bad cultural references that has made it something that, like this should be shamed or, looked down upon or something in society. It's usually just because people get intimidated by intelligence because they compare other people's intelligence to their own and then they feel inadequate. And, knowing somebody that has confidence in their own sense of who they are and their intelligence, and not have to like worry about other people like testing or comparing it because you know who you are, you're confident in your capabilities, and you know that you don't know everything because nobody can know everything. But you know something, and that something is your mastercraft. You are a craftsman of that knowledge base and your capacity to be able to reflect and express that out into the world in a way where other people can capture it too, and then they have that thought in their head as well, and they understand it. Like that's the law of unification happening in real time. That is genius. That is intelligence. That is brilliance. I think that's a lot of what, I'm not an AI expert, but like AI, when I think about it, is this artificial, intelligent way of seeing the world that you could like literally take it out of, whatever context somebody's created it from and put it in another context and it works the same there. Different because historical, situational, and fine context is going to be different, but it will still be effective in revealing an insight. And that's how you share, information with other people and build up a knowledge base with one another. This is how you learn. This is how you teach. And then when you think about the ways that we learn nowadays, it's just like, it's all wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. Like I did not have a traditional education experience. And so that's a lot of my social awkwardness, I think. And the reason why, I had to create this game of conversations was the fact that I did not have socialization in school. I was in school for a very short amount of time. High school, I graduated very fast. It was just super easy for me, and I blew right through it to the point where I didn't make friendships. I did not have a traditional high school experience. I have no idea what that looks like, so there's a lot of cultural and pop references from people having those type of experiences that I don't have. I'll never know that. I can kind of relate when I like watch a movie or something like that, and my children have growing up and going through high school, I can kind of get it, but I don't personally know it. I'll never know it. And I honestly don't miss it. I don't think I missed out on anything because throughout my entire education experience, I've always been so far ahead of whatever they taught me. I moved all of the time, so I'd go to one place and learn the curriculum that was there, and it was like, this is, boring. I already know this kind of stuff. Give me something of a challenge. But they're like, no, we got to hold you into this age group or whatever, and then I'd move somewhere else after, spending time there, and it's a totally different curriculum base, and it's like some aspects I'm a little bit behind on because like I've never been in a classroom setting had to touch upon that, and you're asking me to do things in a very rigid standard way. And it's like, I understand the concept. I don't need to be taught it in order to understand it, because it's already there, because I read books all the time and I'm curious and I learn, so I understand mathematics already. But what I don't understand is how to sit there and do it the way you're telling me to do it, because it's the dumbest way to do it in my mind's opinion. It's like, it's very unnatural. But that's, again, not trying to say like I'm super amazing, totally intelligent person and I know everything. It's just, that's my education experience, was always just like, this is dumb. This is such a waste of my life. And so I spent most of my life learning on my own, spending time making toys on my own so that I can learn how to, build things so that I can understand something better. Very hands-on type of person. And I learned from those life experiences. And when I get information from the things that I do and I try to share it with other people, I lack the pop culture references for other people to get, which is why I love my kids so much, because they give me a lot of the modern day pop culture references. One of our favorite things to do is that they will share stories with me about TV shows and movies and games and content they see on various different social medias and, trending things on TikTok or whatever. And they'll share those stories with me. And it's, learning by experience definitely helps you to know in such a way that you can be a craftsman of it with a firm footing of how that applies, in your own world. But I like to learn from other people's stories, because that helps me create a synthesis by which I can better extract insight from others. So I listen to other people tell stories, and then I pick up ahas and epiphanies from what they share and whatnot. So my kids share these worldly experiences with me, and the thing that they love about it is there is no spoiler alerts with me. I like to get every single detail, and I love to hear their story, what matters to you and why, and I listen to the inflection and the expression and the joy, and it's like you see into the heart and soul of a person, of what matters to them. And then you extract the information and build up a framework of okay, well, I understand it, to the point where I can kind of understand sometimes what a meme is saying, even though I may not personally have watched that show, sort of thing. So I'm really good about taking other people's experiences to help to synthesize into an understanding where I can experience mutualities with many different people. Which has been important to me, again, from, at a young age, moving around a lot. I didn't have roots in any one specific place long enough to establish long-lasting relationships with people. And I was constantly having to meet new people all of the time. And I'd get myself in one area, and it was this is the popular, trendy thing in this area. And, yeah, sure, that's great. And I try to integrate into their worlds. But it was these things don't really value or matter to me. I was a bookworm that liked to, read how-to manuals and things like that. I was mostly in the library or out in the natural world, exploring nature and figuring things out. But I liked sitting in social settings with people to learn about the human experience from their perspective. And people love that about me. I learned that's one of my best qualities, is that I'm just a really good listener. And I really care, because I really want to know a person on a deep level, so that every time that I see them, they hey, you're the person that took the time to get to know me, and you know me well. Do you remember the time? Sort of thing. So I'm really good at that, and I learned that over the years by being put in situations where I was never going to fit into their world, but I could be the unique outside person that hasn't heard all their stories and wasn't there for the experience. It's like, oh, so it's somebody to inform. And so I became a valuable asset to different communities that I moved to. And so I was able to blend in and fit in with every crowd, the cool kids, the jocks, the weirdos, the freaks, the goths, the misfits, punk rockers, the grunge. I fit in with everybody. There wasn't a single group that I didn't fit into. And every single one of them loved and appreciated me for the fact that I was a really good listener, and I was really good at synthesizing back to them what they were saying in such a way that helped them to better understand themselves. And I found that kind of to be like a social superpower. So that was really where I started building my game of conversations, was because in all this time of learning about people, I have a massive memory bank. I remember things. When you build stuff, you have to be able to remember how you put something together and why. And I have a vast memory bank. I remember things in like very specific details. I have to actually intentionally make myself not remember everything, because it becomes completely overwhelming. But because I can remember this stuff, it's because I have this, laboratory in my mind, this sphere where I compartmentalize information and I put it in certain specific places, and I'm able to encapsulate it and then pull it out on demand. It's having a huge library of reference. But it's also kind of like, the people who do memory recall challenges, they have what they call like the palace in their mind, and you walk through the palace and that's how you remember the order of cards or something like that. It's something kind of like that. I am not really interested in that kind of stuff. I like to turn my memory bank into a means to absorb information, categorize it, pull it out for reference. But it helps me when I talk with people because I'm able to absorb a vast amount of the information that they give to me, synthesize it, and put it into these framework by which the next time I meet them, then I can help reflect that back to them. And people like that because I'm a really good metric, not necessarily that they're conscious of it, but a very good metric of reflecting another person's growth and personal development. Because I know their story, I know where they've been, and I know where I'm finding them in the next one, sort of thing. So I'm a really good measuring rod in that regard, which sounds weird, but anyways, so having this capacity to see people and to be really sympathetic to their situation. Empathetic in the sense, yes, I could put myself in your shoes and I care and I want to know why it matters to you. But sympathetic also in the sense of just like, I kind of like know what they need. And then, caring enough to want to act on their behalf to improve their situation, lessen their struggle, or really champion for them in the ways that I see their potential. And when I find a beautiful mind that's able to have so much of the framework that I create to understand people and light up, with potential, like I really, really want to help to champion them. But it can be intense because it's like, you don't know how awesome you are. Let me explain it to you, but not in a like, I'm a fan kind of way, but just like, I am your cheerleader because I know what you're capable of, and guided in the right way, you can be remarkable and really good things are going to come to fruition in the world because of what can be brought out in you if you had the right moderating influence there. And so, meeting all these people as I've moved around, sharing conversations with people, I grew that into this conversation game, but it really came from this question that's constantly in the back of my head of like, what is the human element? And I formalize that into these structures to be able to see people in their authenticity, really know what they're about, and be able to meet them on a level where they don't feel I don't make them feel anything but just welcome to be who they are. I'm a really good ally. And it's because I care about knowing who you are as a person and what you're all about. Because I know somewhere in you is this beautiful spark that, if ignited in the right way, I mean, you can become this great illumination of improvement in the world. So I bring this concept of the human element. What is that? What is the human element? And bring it into this framework of this capacity to contextualize things, compartmentalize things, so I can bring them back up for, positive reference. Then the situational experience of creating these marking memories and making them whole, so I know where I've been, I know where I'm going, and then measuring through whatever metric means that I can, even if I'm the one building the jig to frame the reference point. This is like my favorite symbol. I do this all the time. It's like when I take pictures, I always do that. Usually I start a video by doing that. It's because it's degrees of separation, it's orientation within space. And I use that as like a jig to help me remember always to orient within. And, I build out these connecting points and then catch the ahas and epiphanies out of it, because it brings me joy, but it also because it informs me, yes, that relates to the human element as well. It helps me to improve my capacity to be a good conversationalist when I am in communication with individual people, and it helps to make my experience that much more pleasurable when I'm actually playing my game of conversations with people. But then it's putting a proper intended use to my game of conversations of I'm seeking something very specific, not in a sense of like it must rigidly conform to this framework, but rather like I'll know it when I know it, sort of thing. And when you know, and that ties back into the resonant of my heart songs, like that. I'm just going where my heart's compelled, doing what I need to do when I need to do it because it feels right, and it's always brought me to the right place at the right time to experience what one might call destiny. And the destiny is really about the experience of uniformity. And uniformity is a way of recognizing the consistencies of the patterning of the universe that's playing out, and then referencing it in ways, again, making what can be measured measurable, and from that being able to get a sense of like why. I like the why questions, so that I can understand the how. And the how can I be of service, or how is it that everything aligns with you in the ways that it does, because it feels so right. And then you found your tribe, where you belong. And it's a human experience that everybody has. It's definitely a fundamental part of the human element of people wanting to feel like they found their tribe. But so much of society makes it in a very superficial way. It's like, you'll know who your people are, right? Your people, based off of they wear the same clothes as you, they eat at the same restaurants as you do, they watch the same shows as you, they listen to the same music as you. Like, that's conformity, and conformity is super important. It's definitely an instrument for being able to devise, orderly systems in the world. But that conformity reveals about the tendency of the individual to fill the mold that they've been given, rather than the individual fitting in to where they belong, like a puzzle piece finding its place in the puzzle. And so it's actually sad to see when people like try to fit in places where they honestly don't belong. A lot of human conflict happens when people choose to do that because you're so busy trying to be in the crowd that you are not able to be in alignment with who you are, which would actually take you to the place where you would be most happy. You know, one of my fundamental soul print value guidance is the concept of go where you feel most alive. And that's part of, you know, my heart song is I go to where I feel most alive. And I feel most alive when I have those aha and epiphany moments and it's just funny. And then my mind and my heart sync up. It says, this is where I'm meant to be right now. You know, this isn't the final destination. This isn't like, man, this is where I've been trying to get my whole life, because I know what that looks like. Like, I know where I'm going. But I am, you know, the concept of getting to, you can't spend so much time, you know, worrying about getting to where you're going and forget to make the most of where you are. And that really is, that's what it's about, is knowing, you know, I didn't stage this, I didn't set this up, you know, I didn't conform to try to create a certain specific type of impression. It is just the natural order of the universe, and I'm in alignment with it. And I don't know why it's sync in all these different ways, but it is, and it's freaking funny that it happens, you know? And I see it because my worldview is very informed, and I'm awake and aware for it. But other people can't see it. And, you know, again, so growing up having this like consciousness and then wanting to be able to share it with other people, mostly to check, to be like, why does everybody think I'm crazy? Because I laugh at what seems like inappropriate times, or, you know, my sense of humor seems like bland or dull, but it's really like the simple things are where I find joy in. Like, my great sense of humor is puns, you know, like puns and dad jokes, you know. I like plays on words and things like that. That's the stuff that makes me giggle. And, you know, and then moments where it's just like, you know, I didn't set this up, but that's what ended up happening. And isn't that just the way the universe is so funny? I think that all the time. I'm like getting this, you know, toy today as I'm in the middle of building, you know, the toy part of my model. It was just like perfect timing, you know, and knowing that it's all about unification, so it has to be appropriate alignments. It made it so it just syncs together, and that's how I know I'm on the right path, you know, of my life. But if you want to know a little bit more about what I'm talking about in terms of building toys, I do have a video called, well, that's not what it's called, but where I talk about building a great instrumental device. And in that video, I explain the 6 degrees of separation. And I reference it in terms of like words that help to create like a generalization of what the function means. One of my favorite companions everywhere I go, other than my cell phone, which is like my best friend, and not because I'm addicted to my phone, but just like, you know, kind of like I was saying, I would be amazed to meet Leonardo da Vinci because there's so much potential, and I love to be able to, you know, champion for that. But the fact that I have my phone, it gives me reference. And the thing I like about it the most is because I grew up before cell phones were a thing. And when I was younger, I still have, in my very few possessions that I have, worldly possessions, I have dictionaries. I have one from like the like 18 or 1900s and like early times. And the thing is like this big, it's huge. It's one of my favorite books. And just for fun, I like to read through it to be able to see how language has changed over the years. But then I used to carry like dictionaries with me everywhere I went, dictionary and a thesaurus. And now I have one in my pocket, so I don't have to carry the book. Again, it's like with my Remarkable, the fact that like it's the best technology I've ever had in my life. Even more so, I don't consider it my friend, I consider it just like an extension of myself. But the fact that with my phone I can access a thesaurus at the touch of a finger, you know, on the screen, look, I have it all accessible to me. And I like it because then I can find what's the right word in order to convey what I want to say. Because words are transformers, they change things. And so having this mechanism where I've embedded certain words that are meant to be generalizations of meanings, but how that word is defined and delineated in terms of how it all comes together is something that's more than words to be able to express. So part of the reason why I wanted to talk about unification was because it expresses the reason why those words are delineated and defined, because they give a rigidity to structure and order. It gives you an edge case by which that you can build off of greater and greater reference, so that you have a wider scope for catching the obvious and the non-obvious integrated relationships that are happening. And doing that is part of the reason why I build up, you know, these various different toys, is because I'm able to provide that scope for myself, extract the insights and information that I'm looking for, because I have a very certain specific intention, coming at it with multiple intentions to be able to zone in on a very, very specific thing. But I wanted to share this because where I'm at with everything, and it's this funny, you know, that's funny moment, and needing to share a little bit of the behind the scenes in order to give better reference, because something dawned on me, which is not the same as an epiphany. It's just like an awareness, like, it just occurred to me. I didn't think of this or consider this before. Now I can, and I'll relate that back into the bigger picture. I want somehow to be able to provide a reference point for others to be able to consider me as an individual. Again, I'm not doing this because I'm looking for like some sort of fan base or popularity, but very specifically, I want people to know who I am so that they can understand what I'm about and see the consistency in it, and it can help to be able to establish a sense of trust with me. Because the work that I'm working on, the reason why I make all these toys, the reason why I perfect myself and improve myself and self-develop and do personal development and, you know, constantly am learning and reflecting, and why I do everything I do is because I'm trying to work on creating this vast synthesis by which I can serve for a better world. But in order to get to that point, I have to be able to draw in people who can trust what I'm about and what I'm doing. And I learned the hard way that you can't just go like meet a person and expect them to be like, oh, hi, new person. Like, sure, let's sit down for a long conversation and, play a game together and get to know something. When I seek out people, it's because like, it's very specific. It's like, I know you know the answer. And it's not like I'm trying to extract it from you, but I'm like, you are a living answer to an ultimate question, and every question that I have leads to you. So like, that's why I'm here. But other people don't know how to take that. They don't know how to take me at my word and trust that I don't have, bad intentions. And I try to respect that, the fact that the world is filled with a lot of people that would want to harm you. And because I've been harmed many times in my life as well, I have those, protective mechanisms within me as well. But there was a point in time not too long ago where I was so completely free from the chains that had bound me by years of exploitation and trauma and abuse from terrible human relationships that I had, because people saw my peculiarity as something that they wanted to trap and possess and hold, and they used me like a tool, and bad things happened. And it took many years for me to be able to heal myself from those things to the point where that didn't cause me to stop believing in the good of humanity, actually genuinely heal from that. But it gave me the sympathies of understanding other people have their own struggles, and that's probably the reason why they can't be as open as me. Just to come into something like full-bodied, all right, let's do this. Sounds good to me. Not everybody's like that, and I guess especially because I'm not really an extroverted person, but I'm not really an introverted person either. I'm just like me existing, here, and when opportunity arises, I seek it full and wholeheartedly. I'm willing to literally go across the country on a like fluttering of the heart, saying like, that's where you need to be there. You need to have this conversation, and everything is about that, and leaping full-hearted into it, come what may. That's always how I view the world, as come what may. I don't like expectations because they are always future disappointments. I like anticipations, which is like I'm saying with making these reference points. And it's like following that heart song is like, I anticipate something awesome is going to happen right here. And how can I compile the right types of jigs and, templates and, balancers and, pressure gauges to be able to see what's going to happen at this point, because I know something amazing is going to be here. And yeah, it always ends up being there, but it's not necessarily always what is what one might think as reasonable. And sometimes there's, these conundrums, these like complexities. And my curious self is like, I need to pull this apart to understand it, because this is new. This is something totally different. I don't know how this works. And I need to know how. Like, I'm a very how does this work type of person. So, and I don't do it in a way of like trying to offend people, like I'm psychoanalyzing someone, because that's definitely not what it is. It's just like, I see you in certain things and I want to know why, because there's a connection and I want to make it. But when you find that one person and you see them in everything, it makes it difficult to focus on anything else. And it's almost like this puzzle that needs to be solved, and not in the sense of like, I need to figure it out so that I can like leave it and move on or something like that, but just like, I know this fits in some beautiful, natural, affinity bound way, and I just want to know how that works, because I'm trying to create a sense maker out of this, and knowing that I'm not going to be able to make sense of it all, but getting to the point where it can be refined to get down to the pure essence of what that, amazement is, and just sit that close to it in proximity to be able to like genuinely appreciate it. It's kind of like seeing somebody's soul and wanting to be close enough that you see them for who they truly are, completely unrefined from any worldly construct, like universal, unbound limitlessness that is coming from one particular place. And it's like, but why? And so realizing that and looking for it in some sense of like, I know there's something there and there's more to be discovered, and then the joy and the engagement and the wow and the amazement of folding back pieces and revealing more and going deep into understand essence after essence. And it's almost like little bits of it lift off every time you pull back a layer, and more of it's released until it starts to establish a sense of fullness. And it's like, I know I haven't gotten to the fullness of it yet, but I sense I'm moving in the right direction to be able to discover it. And it matters to me to discover it, because every time I move closer to that, more of like the ahas and the epiphanies I experience in my life, to the point where it's not just me having to build out these points of references, it's just I'm awashed with it. I'm like living in the atmosphere of it. It's hard to describe in words what that means, but I sense that my connection to this universal knowing way of being that I've been searching for, in all my various different studies in my lifetime, has really been leading me up to knowing how to know a person on that deep of a level, and then trying to find the person who wants to be known in that way and who's willing to be open to the possibilities of it. And not in a selfish kind of way, but knowing to know that there's such a person in the world helps you think that the world's not such a bad place, and then that's a firm footing. It is the one thing that can ground me down, and keep me poised and centered when I'm doing all of this other work of synthesizing and looking at the world and bringing things together, and constantly, I can relate it to doing programming, but instead of in a screen on a computer device that does this stuff and then it comes up with your ones and zeros reference or whatever, it's like programming the universe and seeing that in everything, but the truth and the beauty of it all is right there, the closer I get into understanding that one common element. And it's just kind of like, why have I been doing everything I've been doing in my life? It's like, well, this is why. This is it. And that's such a beautiful place to be. And it's such a stillness. It's such a calmness. It's such a certainty. It's literally like knowing, like, I know where I am, when I am, therefore who I am, but it's like knowing on a level deeper than I ever thought before. It's like I discovered deeper levels of myself that I didn't know were there before. But then, I'm peculiar, very weird. Who does that kind of thing? It seems obsessive or like you love way too much, back off, weirdo sort of thing. So I try to distill my enthusiasms amongst many people because I'm just a lot to take in when I'm my fullest and truest authentic self. And I do it out of like total respect and appreciation for other people. Like, okay, boundaries, I understand, or the distance by which I can love you and myself simultaneously. I expect that you have those too, whether you've delineated and defined them for yourself. You have a point, which is like, oh, there's friction there. You're coming into the wrong place, the wrong time, the wrong way. Red flags going up everywhere, distort, delete, generalize, got to get out of this situation. It's a trap, sort of thing. I have been there too. So like being understanding of that, I try to not come across the wrong way to people, but something, about this one person that you think they would understand. And then it's like, well, how do you find a way to help them to understand? And do so in such a way that it doesn't take me away from my good work that I am constantly needing to do. And then also recognizing, like, the parts of myself that were revealed to me as I got closer to this, recognizing there's some things that were left unresolved within me that I needed to make sure I was okay with, so that I didn't misconstrue, uncertainty with something that I needed to fear. And so having to break down old models and build them back up with ones that were based off of learning and openness and understanding. But then when somebody recognizes that you are this vulnerable, there's a tendency for other people to catch on to it and to try to exploit that as a weak point. And especially in the digital realm, because of the anonymous factor, there's many bad actors with nefarious intent who will act upon these opportunities that they see to fuck with other people, and it becomes a really unfair situation. And me coming from terrible abusive situations in my life, I do my best to stay out of control dramas with others. And when I see them coming, I automatically get pulled in, and then I have to struggle to rebalance myself in that, to remove myself from it. And it's a fucking mess, and it's not a pretty thing at all, and it's terribly raw and real, and unfortunately there's a lot of people in the world that like to see that happen. They like to watch other people suffer, and so they'll stage and set people up so that they suffer. And me being a curious person makes me a tempting prey for those who are out on the hunt for someone that they can exploit. And so there was something that I had known in my years of living in fear of perpetual abuse cycles, that I had forgot once I moved out of them and I healed and I forgave, in the purest sense. I no longer referenced that, so I wasn't on guard for those sorts of things, and it throws me off when I'm thrown back into it again. It's hard to be human. It really, really is. But I sympathize. I think that's why I care so much about wanting to protect innocence. That's a soul print value for me, is to protect innocence, is because I don't want children or young impressionable minds or those who are weak and vulnerable to be exploited by bad actors with nefarious intent. And I learned a lot from the experience of probably shouldn't have placed trust in somebody who obviously had no reason to trust me. And, you know, bad outcomes come from that. But that's the whole point of building rapport, right? Which is why I try to have this game of conversations, is to help to build that rapport, to establish trust. But not everybody's open to do that. And then it's like, how do you break past that barrier, you know, without stepping across boundaries, you know, in respects and things like that, especially when it matters that you make a connection with someone. And then you realize sometimes it's just not the right time, right place, and you just need to step back, you know, and wait till, you know, see if your paths cross again, which if it's meant to be, it'll be, sort of thing. But calling this all into regard, like why I'm talking about it, is to know that what I'm working towards is a way for people to be so authentically, unabashedly themselves, living from the best truth that they know. Because I know when we do that, then everything flows with natural ease. There's no fighting or confliction. There's no friction. It's just like, this is right. And then when you do feel the friction, that's the edge of the new thing to discover. You know, you don't want to live in, you know, the pure domain of love, because that's not where life is. Life is in the contention between love and strife. And, you know, that friction that happens in between that's where life comes from. And you got to find the right type of people to share those experiences with, so you can rub each other the right way to be able to help one another grow and become better versions of themselves, with all due respects. So I'm hoping to be able to help to heal humanity, in a sense of like, a lot of our relationships, human relationships, are very much broken. Culture is, you know, teaching people to make bad connections and poor choices, and operating in a, you know, atmosphere of lies and deceit and hatred and violence, and, you know, lots of bad outcome consequences are happening from that, and we are in a really bad trajectory. And I don't live in it. I live in the consequences of it, because nobody can escape the consequences of it. But I don't live in it in a sense of like, I'm wrapped up in it entirely. So I can have one foot in each realm. And being able to do that helps me to be able to build that thing that will help to unite people to a common cause, that would help them break away from those old paradigms and be liberated into new ones. And this is like the element of change, and needing to establish that for people so that they can break state away from where they're at, and the hyper fixation on where they're at, to be able to move to where they're going. And then invite them with welcome into a new experience, so that where they're going is something where we're all going together as one, and being able to help people sense where they belong so they can naturally come into alignment, because where they actually truly belong is where they're able to do the best service to the world. And then once we are able to figure that out, then we'll be able to really truly harness the force of the universe that's moving through everybody. Every living, an inanimate object has this force moving through it. And it's the same unifying pattern, but it has different variations of expression. And but your sense of belonging, where you are meant to be, if we're all turning and facing the same direction, then we're able to do, good work together. And I don't know how to really explain it other than I'm hoping to be able to get everyone to start looking in the same way. And I'm hoping somehow, with me sharing my story, my personal position, where I am and when I am in my life right now, in terms of my life experience, and my reasoning behind what I'm doing, and how I'm going about doing it, and why I do the things I do when I do them, will help to let me be kind of like a model example for other people to see, like, what it is that I'm talking about, and hopefully get them to move in that direction as well. Not because I'm trying to establish a cult following or something, but it's kind of like establishing a new religion. It's a new way of being and seeing the world, but in a way that really emphasizes the power of human ingenuity in capturing it. And then putting it to a proper intended use. I have many more things to say about that, of course, but I'm going to end this video on that point. I'm going to make another video after this, like it literally immediately after this. But part of me wants to like break state, because I literally just had another aha epiphany or whatever about something else that I need to share that is in relationship to this, but can't be brought into the same context of this without altering this state of mind in such a way that it would send the wrong types of signals. Basically, I've like just proven out my process of how I enter in one of these points of reference in doing my work. Again, building that toy or whatever, embedding it in my mind. And so now when I go in and I do my work, I'm seeing it through that frame of reference, and knowing that like I'm trying to get out something. And in this sense, it's a deep personal indescribably important connection that I'm hoping to be able to make in such a way I like to reference songs. It's one of my favorite languages to use is music, speaking through music, but the song lyric goes, if you could only see the way she loves me, maybe you would understand why I feel what I feel about this love and what I must do. And hopefully that kind of like helps to put into a context. And hopefully this little expression of myself isn't so much that it's like, you're a little too weird for me, because trust me, I know. But it's getting at something else that's coming along, and this is a point in reference in time that's going to be able to lead into that. And hopefully with this context will help you to be able to better understand that context that is to come afterwards. But it all comes together into a vast synthesis. And honestly, I don't even really I literally expect nobody to watch this. But I do hope that the right person is watching and considering this, so that it'll make it much easier to get to where I'm going with all of this. There's some things that are just so unspeakable, but it's just like a really deep knowing. And when you find the right person that's able to help you be in that space of knowing, most often it's a beautiful human experience. Like, I want more people to feel that. I want more people to be able to just know another person on that level. And my mind just believes that there's a way to make it happen, not force make it happen, but like force channeling, you know. It's like I do like Qigong and Tai Chi, and it's all about flowing within the existing realms and just knowing where you're supposed to be. And it's like dancing, which I love to do. And just like it's part of I know where I am and when I am in those moments, and being consistent in that flow state and being able to move most fluidly and naturally. Like, more people need to have that type of experience. But how do you convince others to want to enter in the dance with you? You know? How might people be convinced that it's worth the time to spend to really truly discover another person? I mean, it's a great question. It's a really great question. With that, I appreciate your valuable time and attention. Until next time.